She has the ear cocked. Look up
Didn't know I
here.
was going to be on telly. She cleaned herself up.
Good.
Sandy.
She might try to get up.
She's comfortable enough.
Yeah, true. She likes
That's what she likes.
She'd like talking.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
no.
She's going back again.
Oh, Sandy.
No.
Just have her sleep.
No worry there.
She has there's a picture taken on, that's all she wants.
Okay.
Don't get burned.
So I don't wish the bar.
No, that is good. Fix it, fire now.
No, Sandy.
You read them the roles and bees, is she?
Huh?
The two women.
Okay, roll.
Okay.
Off you go.
The back door closed, Nicola.
Kathleen, you're a well-known musical family around the area. We're wondering what side of the family did that come from, and did you have sessions back at the house and all that?
Well, it came from my side of the family, but not that much, because people hadn't the money to buy musical instruments at the time. My aunt used to play an accordion. My father used to play the flageolet. And that's all I can remember in my father's family.
Yeah.
Well, my family were not musical, they were singers,
All right.
but they didn't have music.
Yeah.
And it's my own family now, I mean, not the family I reared, but the family I reared, most of them were musical. Tom and Dick and Nicola, and they're musical.
And do you remember, did they have sessions back in the house when you were younger?
Here?
Maybe that, yeah.
Oh, they had. They used to have several sessions here. They'd have a session nearly every week when they were in the secondary school.
They were lively
And they
days.
used to have young lads in here and young girls
Having
listening to them and playing until all hours of the morning. The Welches in Carabeg, do you know them?
I heard of them.
Michael Welch
Yeah.
and Jimmy and Tommy, they used to be here. And the Lees, the other side of the village, well, only Chris Lee, she's Michael Welch's wife now. They used to be here,
So they'd all congregate here
yes.
for the music session.
They'd be singing a while and they'd be dancing a while and playing music. And that happened several times.
Yeah.
But some of them went away then and they were separated. But they're still all friendly and knocking about.
There wasn't much of a pub scene then, was there? It was more
Pardon?
There wasn't much of a pub scene, it was more in the
Oh
houses.
no, there was no pub scene in them days.
Yeah.
No, none of them boys that used to come here used to drink at all.
Oh, all right. Just come for the crack in the music.
Yes,
Yeah.
they loved music.
Yeah. And can you tell us much about family life, how much it's changed from back then to now?
Well,
So
now,
is there a big
even
difference?
in religion, an awful lot has changed. When I was young, we lived 2.5 miles from our parish church and from our school, and we walked to school every day and walked to Mass every Sunday. And I remember Christmas mornings when we used to be out in the dark and all the lights on. We used to love to see the houses. My mother and a crowd of us with her, all young and all walking. And at the time, we weren't allowed to eat from 12 o'clock the night before until we come home from Mass in the morning.
Fast.
So that's an awful lot that has changed.
Yeah.
So,
You'd see all the
I-
Christmas lights in the windows.
and I remember when the Tans were on Ireland. I barely remember it now. We used to see them passing in the lorries, and they having guns pointed around every side of them. And one day we were going to school, and when we got as far as the school, they had been in the school, and the teacher had sent out word that there was no school that day. So we went home delighted. We thought it was great to get a free day.
If only you knew. Yeah. It must have been very scary though.
Oh, it was terribly scary.
Yeah,
It was terribly scary.
yeah. Was there a lot of tragedy then around that time?
No, not at that time. They used anybody they caught on the road, they surely did something. They threw them into the river, or they put them walking away and fired shots after them and all that. But I remember after I get married, Ned was telling me here that he was in that IRA, and his brother Tommy, with them fellas now that were shot.
Yeah.
He never was in jail, but his brother spent 4 years in jail. And he was, I know he had a mark on his head that he got from the Tans. Back there at the pump, they met a lot of Tans one day, himself and Tommy. And they started to question them, and I suppose they weren't giving them the right answers, but they hit Ned across the head. And he had the mark on his head, always after that.
Yeah.
Didn't they have a hiding place somewhere around?
They had a hiding place. It's not there anymore. And there's a fort. Well, this is before the Tans' time. That this fort is back there in Chairde. And there was a gentleman's residence there. And it seemingly, when the Irish began to break out and go against them, they were afraid. There was some of the English had left, most of the English had left, and there were settlers left here in different places. They were back in Chairde, they were down Ballincollia, and they were down in Hetford. They were a place you see a castle or a big house. They were English settlers that owned that. But they were afraid when the Irish began to rebel, and they built fort. And I say it's supposed that there was an underground tunnel from Chairde down to Ballincollia, down below where Maureen McDonough's living. And it could be only a story, but it was said at one time that horses that were ploughing went down in the tunnel. But that was the last
That's
I
how
heard
big it
about
was.
that.
Did you think yourself it was there? Did you think
Pardon?
the tunnel was there?
The tunnel was there.
Yeah.
It was supposed to be there, but nobody ever got to know any more about it.
Yeah.
But in living, money was very scarce. And and very few people they had only very few stock, because when the English left here, there were 6 houses in this village. They're under the sheds now. There's a shed over there, and there's a part of an arch in it. It was a badly made arch, but there's part of an arch in it, and it belonged to a relation of Grace Kelly's chaplain.
Chaplain, yeah.
And she was the nurse they had in them times. They didn't have a nurse, but they had somebody that had some experience.
Yeah.
But they're gone. There was an house here. There was another one by the other gable of the house. They're all demolished now. And the people, their land was divided, and
But they had been owned by the landlords then.
they were owned by the landlords,
Yeah.
and they were working for the landlords.
Was the St. George's?
Well, it was the only thing they had,
Yeah,
and they had to do what they were told.
yeah.
They had no land themselves, only their day's wages.
And can you remember the time when the land was divided?
I can't. That was before. These are only stories that I heard
Yeah,
now.
yeah.
That was before my time.
Mm. Right.
The land was divided. But when the hideout they had back there, I couldn't explain to you. It was in a shed, and there was a cow's shed, and there was some kind of there was like a space from here to there at the manger where the cows used to eat, and that was built up, and they had the hideout in there. They used to get in down low under the ground. They had it worked out that way. They used to get in under the whatever kind of a partition they had at the end of it, but they were never caught.
And how many years
So-
would you kind of going through life with the black and tans driving past you? How many years did you go through that? Can you remember?
Oh, we went through it on. They didn't know there was people for and against them then. There was a lot for these that were joining the Irish Army, and they went around, and when the Tans, before the Tans left, they went around and they broke the bridges. They dug up the bridges,
Oh, all right.
and when the lorries used to come to them, and their lorries would get broken up,
Yeah.
and the lads used to ambush them then.
Clever.
So when they got enough of that, they kind of went a bit easier.
The Irish fought back and
And
kept going until
they did.
Yeah.
But it was the Republic of Ireland that fought back. But when they went, there was a lot of people against them for drawing. They were saying they were making an awful lot of trouble and getting a lot of people killed. The Free State was a different thing entirely then. But when the Free State got in, they tried to collect all the chief members of the IRA and put them into jail, which they did, an awful lot of them.
Was that around the time then when the 7 IRA men were shot in Tuam and 4
It
of
was
them?
the Irish that shot the men. It was the Free State that shot the men. There was an ambush in the IRA took over the banks first, and then when the Free State got in power, they took the banks off them again. And the bank in Hertford, there was Free State soldiers in it, and it was ambushed, and there was, I don't know, 6 or 9 men that was killed in it. So just for retaliation, they took the men out of jail in June and brought them out and shot them one after another. That's I can't say what year it was now. I'm no use at the years.
Yeah. And there was 4 of them from around this area.
There was.
Yeah.
Don't you know the words? Is that Louis Darcy, Greg?
Yeah. But Darcy wasn't him. Darcy was shot on his own. He was one of the
He was
Republicans
with those lads, yeah.
on his way from Dublin.
Mm. Must have been frightening.
It was.
Would you hear
It was really-
gunshots and that in the distance?
It was worse in a way than when the English were in it. That's what happens to country that's at war. When they get their independence, they fight among themselves till they want to get power.
So it was worse after the English left.
Pardon?
It was worse after.
It was.
Yeah.
It was. But I remember the men that were out in rebellion, when they went out first, there was an awful lot of the priests that didn't want them. They thought they were all causing trouble.
Didn't want.
They didn't want them to go out in rebellion. They wanted to stay under the Free State.
Mm.
But I didn't want that. And I know that they passed priests, different priests, passed people by at the altar rails and wouldn't give them out of communion. That happened to people in this village
Yeah.
before I came here.
You have a photograph there by your side from Donapatrick, and that's the parade in honour of the men buried up there, the IRA men that were shot, isn't it? Photograph
No,
there.
no, that's that's Louis Darcy.
Oh,
That's Clyde.
Elijah.
That's back in Clyde. That's where he's buried.
Mm.
That was the man the song was about. He was shot before the men in June were shot, long before it. But they knew that he was commander, and they got him.
Okay. Yeah. And can you tell us a bit about this photograph here?
I don't know an awful lot about it. Only that was a commemoration ceremony for Louis Darcy, and that's my husband, and that's Mrs. Hannon's father up there, a Kennedy man, and they are carrying the roll of honour.
And there's a few names on the banner there.
They know the names. It's on the manor.
Yeah, the men buried up there.
About them all. But it isn't in Clyde that they all buried.
No.
And I think it is in Clyde. Louis Darcy was buried. Why should they go to Clyde?
And that's up in Donapatrick, is it?
This was in Donapatrick. The men that were shot in June were buried.
Yeah, that's right.
But there was a brother of Tom Maguire. Tom Maguire was a general in the army, and his brother, he was only 19 years, and he was shot in June. And Ned's brother here, Tommy, he was in the crowd. He was in the jail too, and he could be the one that was there. He wasn't picked out. It was Michael Monaghan over here in Clooney. He was picked, and they were all lined up together and shot.
And 4 of the coffins then were brought to Headford Church.
Pardon?
4 of the coffins were brought to Headford Church. Then
I don't know.
Yeah.
I didn't hear that part of it. But I'm sure it is to Hedford they'd be, because there was 3 or 4 from around the parish in it.
And did you hear much of the troubles around the rest of the country back then? Like you wouldn't have had television, so
There was no television at the time.
would you have heard about the troubles around
There
Ireland?
used to be ambushes in different places. I know there was one big ambush in Turmagidi at one time. That was the biggest ambush I heard of. And they won that battle anyway.
So would there been celebrations around here when they would win a battle? Would word spread?
At them times,
Yeah.
there was no celebrations.
No.
There was celebrations after elections, and there was trouble after elections. And it left the country years that people weren't friendly with one another. There were different policies.
Even neighbours.
Yes, even neighbours.
Yeah. So that put pressure on the people because you were so reliant on neighbours at the
Yeah.
time. Yeah. What age were you then around those times?
I wasn't married at the time.
Right. Young enough.
I suppose when we saw them in the school, I'd be around 10 or 12, and I'm sure I'd be about 19 or 20, if I was, from 18 to 20 years at this time. But you know, all the heat a person has at that age to politics.
Yeah. I suppose women then were safe enough compared to men back then. What was it like?
But they were.
Yeah.
Or you wouldn't hear much about women at all.
They just kept to the domestics.
Yeah,
Yeah. And was that hard going?
it was hard going. the men even had to hide in the day. More in the day than at night.
So the women had to keep all
They
sides
wouldn't
going.
staff. I know that Ned and Tommy here, they lived out under the walls most nights until they'd go as far as the camp. And if they heard the tents passing, they wouldn't start from where they'd be.
They'd come into the
Because
houses
they were
after
liable
them.
to fire at anyone, wherever they'd meet them.
Yeah. So you never knew what every day would bring, I suppose. It was uncertain times.
It was.
So times have changed a lot.
Well, it shut up a lot. There was no electricity. There was nothing but oil lamps and candles at the time. I remember after, I don't know what year we got electricity, but we had none of them things. We had no washing machines, no cookers. Even gas cookers were unheard of at the time. We had nothing but the fire, an open fire, and the crane, which is out across the way there, in that old house.
Yeah.
The crane is there still. It hangs up on a frame, and you can swing it in and out and put holders on the whatever you're going to hang on it.
Yeah.
There was the pot hooks that you had, and there was in all the pots that were used at the time, there was no aluminium. It was all that kettle type of stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
And there was ears in them that you put the pot hook into, and you hang it up on the crane. There was a kind of an S hook on the crane that you hung it on. And in other places there was only the one coming down the chimney, a chain and an S hook on it, and you had to hang everything on that. And when you're baking bread, you could hang it if you're able to manage it, and if not, you'd have to pull out the coals in the hearth and put them under the oven and round the oven and put the lid on the oven and put them over the coals, red coals over the oven. And that's how the bread was baked. Or if you had, the crane was, it was good for a dinner, because you could hang vegetables in one part of it, and you could have potatoes in another. And then that would be a big pot of potatoes, not like the few we put out now. But thank God, them days are gone.
And you had fine big potatoes those days.
We
compared
had.
to now.
We had.
Did you find that the food tasted a lot better back then? Did you find the vegetables?
I couldn't say, but it was all homemade. Everything was home. They had their own potatoes, their own wheat that they got made into flour, their own oats that were made into oatmeal, and barley that fed cattle. Those fed cattle too. And there was turnips and mangels, and carrots and parsnips, cabbage, and not much other vegetables because people didn't know about them.
Yeah. Just what was grew around here.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, then they had their own butter and
With the
You
churn.
used to make the butter grind, didn't you?
I used to make the butter. I churned with the first, when I came here, we had 2 cows, and we didn't want all their, it was different, what we used to do with the milk. We used to strain it until it would be hot and leave it in enamel basins until evening, and we'd take the cream off it then and put it into a crock. I have the crock here, yes, one of the crocks Take it out, Nicola. There's things in it. It was only a small crock. See it underneath there.
The black thing.
The black. But I had a bigger one than that. That was a small crock. And the churns are
Took a
gone.
long time to churn.
That is it.
Yes. That was the crock we used to keep the cream in. And we'd went to be right for churning in. We had several different ones from one year to another, or from one time to another. We had did you ever see the dash churn? The one that you put up and down. It's a round barrel.
Yeah, I know them.
And you put the churn dash up and down to churn the milk. And when you had it churned in, when it went to a certain point, it went into just like as if you're creaming it now with the beater. When it came to a certain point, it went into cream and into butter.
Yeah.
And you took it out and washed it and washed milk out of it and washed water out of it and salted it. And that would last for ages then.
Took a long time. It was a long
Oh, it
process.
took an awful lot of time, a terrible lot of time.
Hard work in the
But then
arms.
I got a separator, which was very handy. And I got another churn that you twist the handle in, and you could make the butter. But for the separator, when you put the milk in there, or when you had the cow's milk, and the milk was hot, you put it into the separator, and you roll the separator around. And there was one pipe that the cream came out in, and another pipe that the skim milk came out in. And the cream was all cream at that time. And we used to feed the skim milk to the pigs and the calves. So when I'd have the butter made, so we'd have twice enough butter for ourselves. I used to sell it in Headford to different people.
At the market days, is it?
No, I had customers
Oh,
for it, and for the cream as well. And I got tired of selling the butter anywhere, and I didn't do it anymore. I got a milk can, and I started sending it to the creamery.
the milk in it.
So that finished me making the butter.
Yeah. And do you remember the market days back then?
And
Do you remember market days in Headford town?
I do, but
So you
seldom
do.
ever I went to the market.
Yeah.
It just, unless at Christmas time. There used to be market every Tuesday. Well, that would be for corn and potatoes and all that kind of thing.
Yeah. Mm.
And shut the door, Nicola.
Grand.
She's gone into the room.
And 8 o'clock. Yeah.
There used to be corn, potatoes, wheat, oats, barley, potatoes.
Oh,
And we used to make when we'd dig the potatoes, we used to dig the potatoes with a spade.
by hand.
By hand, dig them by hand. And we used to make a pit out in the field. We used to dig a pit down, and we'd put the potatoes in there and raise them up in that shape. And we'd cover them with straw then, and we'd have to go over that again and cover it with earth. The straw, take the earth from the side to keep down the straw and keep out the rain.
That's how you stored the potatoes.
That's how we stored the potatoes.
Because you'd no room inside.
We had no inside to store them. But if you didn't store them right, then you were ruined. The frost would get at them. And they were all ruined. And many a day we had to go out in all the frosty days and go out to that pit and take off the clay and fill the potatoes. And it might be night when we'd be coming up the water with the donkey and cart and potatoes.
Yeah. And did you do that with any other kind of food? Was it just the potatoes that was stored in that way?
No, we used store anything else.
Mm.
But the corn, we used to cut for years, we cut the corn with the scythe. And one man had to cut it, another had to take it out and make it into sheaves. And it was left on the ground then. And it would have to be bound, tied round. And every sheaf, that had to be done to every sheaf. And when the evening had come, or when they'd have a while cut, they'd go and make it into stooks. Did you ever see stook? You
Never,
didn't?
no, never.
Did you?
Oh no. Not for Dublin.
No, I didn't.
Well, I saw them down in Turlock House. One day we were down there. There's an old picture in it, picture house.
Recently, is it?
And there
Recently,
it's
so-
there, all the old
Really?
work, the work they used to do in olden times.
Yeah.
And how they used to do the hay and everything.
Mm.
But that would have to remain out in the field, and they'd make it into a bigger, put more sheaves together and tie them up to give it time to ripen, or to heat. If it was cut too ripe, there's a grain at heat and to be no good. And from that then they used to bring it into the haggards and in horses and carts and make stacks of it out in the haggard. That's the haggard out there. There were stone stands specially built to raise it off the ground so the rats couldn't get at it. And the next thing that would come would be the thrasher,
Yeah.
taking the seed from the corn. And they'd sell the seed in all they didn't want.
Back then,
And that's what they used to have at the markets.
Okay.
Then at Christmas and different days they'd have geese and turkeys and ducks and all that kind of thing at the market, selling them live.
Yeah.
But that's all gone now.
They really had to work with the rhythm of the land then, didn't they?
You
They depended on
and
nature.
yet people were finished at a certain time, and they used to go and visit each other in different houses at night and play cards. But since all the machinery came in, and since television came, that's all finished. If people come in itself anymore, that thing is on.
It was only one or two houses in the area got a television first, and people would go to their house to watch
Yeah.
television.
Even radios first.
Mhm.
First radios that came was, we had a radio. Ned's brother was a Franciscan and he used to get a lot of things from people.
Okay.
And he got a radio and he already gave it to Ned. But we had the radio. It was only a small little thing, but it was master's voice. It was a great little thing.
Must have been awful excitement when that came into the house, wasn't it?
It was. Terrible excitement.
And what kind of things would have been on the radio then? Would it be really
Songs,
music?
and they'd be racing. And there was Ginger that he used to do dancing. He'd be telling them what to do
Call
with
out
the
the
set.
steps.
And the dancers, you'd hear the music and the dancers, and he'd be telling them what to do in the telly. It was very enjoyable at the time.
And what would have been the highlight of the year? Something that everyone would look forward to. Would it be Christmas time, or would it be a fair day, or was there a day in the year when everybody looked forward to it? Excitement.
Christmas was the time everybody looked forward to. Christmas, they used to visit each other and go around to different houses and there might be a full house in one house and you'd have music and dance and food. It would be a goose or a turkey. And they'd come to the different houses. There were friends, different friends that used to, it may not be all neighbours, But it could be some neighbours and some friends that'd be for Christmas, and they'd be going to have relations for Christmas as well.
And would it be going back to the black and tans and that, would it be a lot quieter on Christmas?
Oh, this was
Would they
quiet.
be
Oh,
peaceful?
the times were very quiet.
They lay down their arms.
But the thing was, people had to walk every place.
People had to?
They had to walk every place. It was all walking.
Yeah. It was hard going then.
Yeah, and then the bicycles came. So the bicycles were mighty. When they came, they were great. Lift off the road. There used to be horses and cars and horses and traps until they came, until the bicycles came. But eventually they wore away and the cars came. So they're here to stay.
Can you remember the first car in the village? Can you remember when the first car came into this area?
I remember the first car I was in at home.
Yeah.
He was he used to drive a car and carry people.
Oh, he gave lifts for people.
Pardon?
He gave people lifts around the area.
Yeah.
Must have been awful excitement being in the car for the first time.
Oh, it was. It was great. You
Amazing.
could see a car. It was great.
Yeah. So people had to were a lot harder then. You know,
They
be
were.
tougher, the women.
Oh, they were. They were.
You were born into it and that was the way it
that
was.
was it. I was out in the fields every day. There was anything going on. And when they were at the oats, there'd be crowders. If we could get a crowd, which was easier in them days to get people than it is now. And we talked about binding the oats after the cutting it and tying it.
Oh, would you have to feed everyone then that was out working?
Oats. I used to come in here then, and I had a big basket, and I used to make sandwiches. And I don't know what I used to make the sandwiches out of. I suppose bacon, because there wasn't ham wasn't that plentiful. There was no one buying ham at the time. But we used to have our own bacon. We used to kill our own pigs and salt them on.
And you'd
And
have
eat
cheese
ourselves.
as well from the milk.
But I used to bring down the sandwiches and a big can of tea and cups and saucers.
So there was always something there was always a job to do. You were
There
never
was.
idle.
There wasn't, even when the evening was over, or when the day's work